Yahoo! Prof here, and we got a bit of prep. I'm gonna plug the old laptop in. Oh, the old laptop. Basically, well, it's actually a year old almost. There's Piece in your cat tower. Yeah, where's the charge cable? Where'd you put it? Oh, you got it in the arm of the chair. Yeah, kitten. Yeah, let's just say she's luckily hasn't gotten any wires on this thing, but no. There you go. You can use USB-C on this for full charge though, for like using it at full and charging. You need the 127 watt one, and it doesn't have PD 3.1, only PD 3.0 or whatever. So I use 100 watts on the USB-C. Now I do have the third 4050 in there. I think 4050 instead of 4060. I think that was it. Or the Quadro, right? And I actually got the i7 instead of the i9, and I got the terabyte instead of 2 terabyte. So technically, because overall TDP is lower, just going from the 2 terabyte SSD in here to the 1 terabyte gained you 2 hours of rated battery life. Now, 2 hours of battery life, I don't know what that actually equals, because it's probably like 18 hours rated or something ludicrous. I got some lights on in here. Boop. Yeah, just finishing up work. Had some issues with the vulnerability scanning boxes. Luckily not with the vulnerability scanning itself, but with the windows on the boxes. Ooh. Let's get you guys locked in here. We're not looking at any of this. Oh, by the way, if you guys need some good microfibers, I like these used to be 3M, and they are 3M owns Scotch-Brite. See, 3M. They used to be branded as 3M. Now they're branded as Scotch-Brite there. Pack of 12 is now $8. I remember when you spent $8 on a microfiber. So we're not doing that. Could do the Nipix. No. We're saving those though. It's for another day. We could do the Noctua, but my 2-pack is actually coming tomorrow. You know, you guys mean 2-pack. Well, on the new A14 by 25s, as you can see, you can get a 2-pack where they're offset by 25 RPM. That way, when you either have them side by side or push pull, you don't get a hum because they don't have that harmonic, like they don't sync up basically. Awesome idea. You also get a little bit of discount by the 2-pack because they know you're buying 2. I, however, needed 3. This is going on the C14 in the home theater PC, and the two 140s are going right in the front, and they're actually exhaust. And you're like, why would you do a front exhaust? Because there's a 200 millimeter intake on the top. That'd be why. I know I actually do airflow. A lot of my builds are non-standard PC builds. Or they're fully water-cooled, and then you can kind of... People are like, oh, but hot air rises. Yeah, fan push air a lot faster than convection. You really only got to worry about convection when you're doing, what do you want to call it? Fanless or noiseless cooling, which Noctua does offer, but not what we're doing here. We're just looking for a low RPM, and talking with them over on Twitter, I was like, hey, C14, because it's a single tower, single 140 millimeter fan, and I have it on pull, so that's the weaker way. Push is better. You're like, why is that? Well, on pull, it's very close to the motherboard underneath, so a little bit worse performance compared to push. I've even done the U14 though in Chibi PC, which just recently, that was when they got upgraded to the D14 G2. And that had the U14S, which is also a single tower 140 millimeter cooler. The heat sinks are very similar. And for a 5800X3D, because of its higher power usage under normal use, like as in it uses more power at idle, in my experience, than a 5700X, for example. But it's a lower TDP, right? And then it's more grumpy too, like as in it wants to be cool, and it will start throttling sooner. So what would happen is that 140 millimeter started bumping up near the max TDP, or the max TJ max, sorry, not TDP, the TJ max for that thing. It wouldn't hit it, but it would get near it. So it'd start dropping like 1 or 2 boost tiers, and that's when X3D gets grumpy because it likes consistency. So you actually start getting significantly worse frame times, even though you only might be like, was it 100 or 120 megahertz slower? Like that's one tier. Every now and that was only after 10 minutes of heavy load, right? And this was, now if you ran this fan at 100% all the time, you could avoid that. But you don't want a home theater PC or a little ITX rig just going, whoa! Even with Noctua fans, it's still loud. So apparently they've seen enough improvement from their because like their A14 Gen 2, their G2, is actually based on their A12 by 25. It's the second generation of that in 14 millimeter form. And then they're going to make a shrunken down version of the A14 Gen 2 as the A12 Gen 2. So technically it's because it goes A14, which is like an upgraded version of like the P12 and then later P14. Then it went like F12 was a different one. There's S12, but then it went A12 by 25, and then it went A14 Gen 2. So there's actually 2 generations between the A14 and A14 Gen 2. So maybe they can see that much improvement. I'm sure hoping that it just takes that edge off the home theater PC. So we don't get some of that, like, I don't want to say it gets stuttering. It's just you get X3D does not like, it likes consistency, like as in, like it doesn't want to bump up to its like up against this TJ Max and then come back down. Like it just wants to run. So like I said, I've actually had, which I've said, like I said a whole bunch of times, I've actually had issues where even though it's not hitting it, we're dipping, and that single tower, single 140 millimeter fan cooler is obviously the D15 Gen 2, no problem. There's just more thermal mass. It's a dual tower, way more heat pipes. You could probably even run it with a single fan and do better, because you just got more meat there. In this case, though, it's not about that. We're here, as I just droned on, about the Fnatic, not Lamzu, definitely not a Lamzu. Fnatic definitely makes their own mice now. I totally gave them crap about that on the last one, which we'll get out here. Here's Fnatic's last mouse, which is actually a Lamzu rebranded. Again, the Lamzu Thorn, specifically the 4K. This was back when the Thorn came out with Lamzu. You could buy it in like 1 or 2K, I think, and then you could upgrade to the 4K receiver. It's probably 1K and upgrade to the 4K receiver. The Fnatic Thorn came with the 4K dongle, and you're like, what is this? Well, you're supposed to put the cable of the mouse cable in there. I don't do that, so I buy these little C2C adapters, and then it's now a giant USB dongle, just a giant dongle boy. And I gave them crap. I'm like, hey, you guys made your own mouse. You guys bought Funk. Like the Funk was they're well known for their mouse pads. But they're the brand, and they were like actually putting out some good stuff. They bought them and they made Fnatic, like the gaming brand company. But they haven't, like, there's the Bolt over there, which I actually do really like. I don't know that there was a Gen 2 Bolt. I should probably look that up. If I recall, Rocket Jump Ninja had a little bit of input on it. I think it was a great shape. The fact that they got that big of a side buttons, I think it's down here actually. Because I got a brand new one, I never used it. Hold on here. Yep. Fnatic Bolt. I probably had it in the Lamzu Thorn video, and it still isn't upstairs. There you go. This was Fnatic's last mouse, and I actually think it was a good one. David Squares didn't like it so much. So pop this out. It has no place to store. Wow, that's front heavy compared to the Thorn here. What I was impressed with, because I like the Rival 3 Aerox 3 shape. It's got a little bit wider front stance than that. Very good if you're a 3-finger player. I think some pros are still doing that. The side buttons are a little, you know, batty, like, versus, you know. But for a mouse this low and this ambi, to have side buttons that big really isn't a thing. Here, for example, we can grab the Vaxi XE, and you can even see that they're substantially bigger than even the Vaxi. And yes, you're probably like, oh, no wonder you like the Bolt, because it's actually in a very similar form factor to the Vaxi. Yep. The Vaxi's a little bit longer. I got a little bit longer hand, I guess. A little bit more rounded, whereas this is a little bit more squared off. Compared to, like, I think one of the Hyper X's was coming around this time, which had flared out base, or that had just come out. This with the straight down one, this is much better to grip. If you notice, there's a little flare on the butt, similar to here, and it goes down pretty low. I like mice that are pretty low where you grip. I've been testing out the Dex here. First couple day or so, my hand did get a little crampy. Found something dumb about this. I forgot the super light. You can't adjust the DPI on the fly. You have to use the software. Like, there's no button here or here. Why? I forgot that was something I hated. That's actually one of the big reasons why I didn't use the super light over the Pro. Like, I bought a super light. You saw it in the video with this. It's basically unused. So what that means is I have to open anytime I want to toggle between 1600 and 400, which are the two I use. And I use 400 for gaming and or precise things. Like, if you're going to crop an image, I will drop it down to 400. Or draw on, like, say if you're drawing up a screenshot, right, and you're using your mouse to do it, I will drop this down to 400. Can't do that with this. I would have to pop open the software every time. And I do not run the LG Hub. I run the onboard memory manager. So you can pop on it, you right click on the DPI you want, you say set as current DPI. Could be way worse, right? Could be much, much worse. But they could have also just put a fucking button on the damn thing. Like, make that click in, or add one over here or something. This is worse. I mean, okay, it's better because it just turns on, it goes to this dongle. But, like, Corsair made a clicky button, and it could have done the DPI. So, like, this is closer, right? But this just, it can't. This is stupid light. Let's see here. I think the Thorn's still lighter. But yeah, I got their last attempt. I think it's really good. They might have made a Bolt V2. Let me check here. If they did, I didn't buy it. They have a white. I didn't like the white, I think, because it was glossy, if I recall. $2020 apparently is when that came out. Maya X8K, yep. So basically anything since the Bolt, and they list the Bolt as both black and white as two separate models. That's kind of being cheeky, if you ask me. And they're still asking $90 for the Bolt. I don't know if the Bolt's worth $90. It is. I would take one of these. Now these are more money, you know. But I think the Bolt is a good shape. Builds a little cheapy, but does have Bluetooth and 2.4. Like, I could technically run this for work if I wanted to. Because I use Bluetooth on my work laptop, and then, or like for PC repair, because you use Bluetooth on your own laptop, and you can use the dongle on somebody else's. So we'll keep this out just for reference, because this is Fnatic's last mouse that they made. This right here, really just a co-branding. It is a really nice, ever since the XE, this is probably the first, I don't know if it's the only, but it was the first mouse, because there's the XE small. But this was the first mouse after the Vaxi XE that I literally just plugged in, used, and I didn't even notice. Like, as in, I played a whole night of gaming. Like, yes, it's a more right-handed ergo shape, but the way that this fits my hand with how much it flares out wider, just like the XE kind of does in the front, right? Compare that to you know, like here, like the Dex, this is wider than the Dex. At least in grip. I don't know if it physically. So a lot of the stuff, just to clarify, a lot of the stuff that I talk about, I'm not taking measurements. But what I can do, because I have all these mice, I put my hand on it and I grab this one. This feels wider in where I grip and how I grip it, right? Than this guy, just a little bit. Actually, they're pretty close. But this was the first mouse after the XE came out, and I knew I would like the XE. Turns out I like ambi shapes. For the longest time, I only used right-hand ergo, like Death Adder, EC2, Kari Laser. I don't know. But I always liked the IntelliMouse Optical, which is like an ergo ambi mouse. I was never a huge fan of the IntelliMouse Explorer, actually. Like, too big, too ergo. I mean, it was fine as a desktop mouse, but not as a gaming one for me. So, I'm going to give Fnatic crap again. Like, why couldn't I just go and buy this from Lamzu? And you're like, well, Prof, why didn't you do that? Well, it's orange, obviously. Also, Lamzu, Fnatic always does something, like as in this shipped in 4K. Back when this was a current product of Lamzu, like at the same time as the Fnatic X Lamzu, or Fnatic Special Edition Lamzu Thorn came out, this was the only one that shipped with the 4K dongle. It was an adder for all of their existing Thorn at the time. Same thing with the Maya, from my understanding, because we didn't do a video of it. We should have, but Muskie was over here with his I was gonna take a picture, but the phone that we're shooting the video on is my camera. So I got the secondary phone, which is at 18% battery. And that's the iPhone. There we go. Got a thing here. And I tried his Maya. I actually did like the shape of the Maya. It's very close to the XE, right? But it was very close to the XE Small Edition. Right? So then when I found out that Fnatic was doing the, you know, like I was like, oh, that's the Maya? I bet you that's the same one because they're partnering with Lamzu. So it's literally it says a Lamzu Maya Fnatic Special Edition. That's what it really is. It's not actually like a Fnatic mouse, even though they did at one point make their own mice. I'm gonna give them crap again. I'm like, oh look, you released another mouse and it's not one you designed. Just jab them a little bit, give them a little prick. But the Maya, like I prefer between the XE and the XE Small. I can do well and game well with the XE Small, but I prefer the shape, especially day to day on the XE. The Maya X is the bigger version of the Maya. Okay, that is why you see Maya X 8K, because I'm like, if I'm gonna order one of these, I'm gonna get the size I prefer, and it happened to be like, well, the pre-order for this was occurring for the Maya and the Maya X from Fnatic. Muskie was over here with the Maya and one other one, not the Thorn, another one of Lamzu's mice. And I was like, oh, that's the mice. So it was actually like just happenstance, great timing that he was just bringing those over to show them off, because of the timing, right? And then from that, I gained like, oh, I do like the shape. I am going to want to pick one of those up. But I'm going to get the X because it's bigger, right? So obviously, because we got orange and orange and orange. What do we got? We got the orange Tactile Knife Co. Maverick here to open it up. Because of course. If you're like, why do you have so much orange if yellow is your color? Well, orange is number 2. And the yellow I like is hard to find. Like this yellow. I don't know if I can unplug this. Here. That's the yellow I like. Kind of like burnt orange yellow. This tie wrap from 3M gets pretty close. These sticky notes get pretty close. This is like a Suns, I think. A lot of like two different paints. I know it was a paint and a nail polish. And you're like, why would you have a nail polish? Well, you can use nail polish for painting things, like very small things in small amounts, and it dries quickly, and you don't have to get a whole paint thing out. The color for that was like Sunburst, and then the Rust-Oleum color I use often to label my tools and stuff is also a Sunburst-based color. So that must be like, they're not all exactly the same, but they're all like in the same realm. Like this 3M tape, that yellow, I do use it for all of my stuff. It's too yellow, in my opinion. I want a little bit of dash of orange, and I know technically it's red in there, but you know what I mean. But a lot of stuff do make, this is a G10 scale on here, and this is my kind of daily driver Maverick, because I do have my really nice one that sits on my desk that I do use sometimes. You know, just not for, like this is for the things that, like real worky things. This is for like, I mean, this box would have been fine. But this is the Fat Carbon purple. Oh, beautiful, beautiful. If they make another one of their knives in the Fat Carbon, I'm gonna have to look as well. But you know, we got the knife there. Lamzu does make their boxes very premium. I don't really know. Look at that printing. Like it's all over the inside. Do they really need it this premium? I don't. Look at that. Because they would include a ton of stuff too. All right, let's put. I still like the bolt. It's a little slippy because it's like really cheap feeling plastic, so it's a little like that texture almost makes it a little. Scroll is actually pretty good on here. That button too, the DPI button, it has it better than a Superlight. There you go. Or here, look, DPI button, it has it. Or if Corsair could program their mouse correctly, they could make it have DPI changed as well. So on this side, we have all the mouse feet, the grips, the bottom, because I'm guessing it's going to be like this mouse and have an open bottom, which I literally do not understand the fact, like the point of the open, yes, it reduces weight, but then they give you a sticker to cover it up. Just let it be open. I'm guessing this is, it's more stickers and the cable in some wax paper packaging, kind of feels like. Maybe that's a little bit renewable. Very premium. Once I take my pictures though, and we get this video done, I'm probably yeeting it, because all of my mice, they end up getting labeled nicer than this. This is the temporary labeling. I don't know what color Fnatic gets for their label. SteelSeries gets orange. Fnatic's effectively, I mean, like Fnatic exclusively use SteelSeries. Also, their color is orange, so they will probably also get orange. But SteelSeries is orange with white, right? Because they use whiteout often to label things as well. So maybe Fnatic becomes orange with a black paint marker instead of white. You know, something like that. Let me know what you guys think. Or we could do black with orange paint marker. I think I may or may not have an orange paint marker. Yeah, we'll have to see. But what kind of... Because I just use... this is just electrical tape. Very easy to remove. Does generally not leave that much residue, if any, if you use the good 3M stuff. Oh, guys, do not cheap out on electrical tape. Just it's not that expensive to buy the... Let's say that. But, like, a single roll of 3M is like a couple bucks versus, like, $1 or less for the off-brand garbage that doesn't stick properly and doesn't stand up in cold temperatures. I don't know. Maybe it's because I live in where I do, where I'm like, yeah, what happens if you leave it outside during winter? You know, or even in your car. Like, say when I use electrical tape to, like, you know, just, I showed you with the cat eating cable. Yeah, I wish the cat didn't do that. Luckily, the cat didn't get any wires, so I'm just covering it up, you know, because those surface chargers are not cheap. I already own 2 of them. The other one's over there on the floor. Yeah, they're really not cheap. I even buy the open box ones from Best Buy, and they're still not cheap. Okay, I'm not going to take these feet off because we're not on a mouse pad, and I'm just going to wreck them. And I want to have my first experience tonight. Those are a little... Yeah. A little... Like, this is better, for sure. I say better for sure, but maybe not. Okay, those feel almost identical. The only difference is that I feel like the thorn is angled more towards you. These do stick out, especially on the upper part, which is good for us fat thumb people, because what can happen now? There's plenty of room on this mouse. Look at that. Look at, this is what I look for in a mouse. Look at that. I can put my thumb flat because I like the flat part of my thumb to be what grips the mouse here, so that I can pivot it up and click, and then you can use the back and click that, right? But if you notice, I'm not clicking any buttons. It's amazing. XES, we're resting on it just ever so slightly. So generally when I play on a game, I actually pivot it to actually hold the tip of my finger to hold it, not the base like that. Because if I leave it here, if I just shift wrong, I get a little bit of a misclick there. Whereas if I use the tip, there's no issue like that, right? For example, if we go on here, XE, same sort of thing. Almost perfect for my fat thumb. I would argue the Maya, if I put this where my thumb normally is, there's no gap from my thumb to the side buttons. On the Maya X, the other thing I like about the Maya X is they separated them. If you notice on the XE Small, they started doing that. They also have like this translucent button on the side versus the normal plain black. I do like that. I think it's harder to see on these. Maybe they didn't do it on this one. Let's get a flashlight. Maybe slightly translucent. On the NP01S and stuff like that, they actually had like a translucent side button. So I might like that better. But I do like the separate, like a little bit of separation, because you can feel that when you're doing it. Whereas when they're right up to each other like this, yeah, that gets a little like you don't feel that little gap is actually surprisingly useful when you actually game with your side buttons. Meaning like I use grenade and melee, tactical, scroll forward, back is switch weapon. Like just swap between main and secondary. This I was like, this mouse feels good. Yeah, it's the XE Small. Of course it does. I already thought it felt good. So 8K polling. I'm gonna have to steal this guy's thing. I mean, I'll probably swap between these two because they're so similar. But you know, just so I can use it as a dongle. There you go. 8K polling right there. Do you really need 8K? No. I only have a... Well, actually, I have a 240 hertz monitor now. I keep forgetting that. I was like, oh, I only got a 144 4K. No, the new OLED is 240. I'm still around... I could do that with more DLSS. I could hit that refresh rate. I really only notice if I drop below 100, though. Like, that is where I notice that and that comes from playing on 120 hertz monitors. And then I went 144, and like I could actually push past the 120. And I noticed on some harder games and stuff, before like DLSS was really a thing, as much like in every game basically, that 100 was enough. You know, as long as I have at least 100, I like about 100 FOV as well. It's a bit above the 90, which is like the average. 105 is what I shoot for that. Call of Duty, I crank it all the way up because there is an advantage to that, and I got used to it eventually. I think the 105 comes from Destiny, if I recall correctly. Destiny 2, to be exact. That did change later on in the game's life, I think, though. So, like, the 8K for me, like, you need, like, the 500, you know, I'm going to leave it in 8K because I mainly use it for gaming. This is where actually installing the software would be good, or having profiles. The G700S from Logitech did a great job of this long before G-Hub. They actually broke it when I went to G-Hub, and you couldn't use the old software anymore, because what you could do is you could actually set up, hey, these are my profiles. This is my desktop profile, and this is my gaming profile. And then when you switched profiles physically on the mouse, because it had 5 onboard profiles, not just 1, 5, it would switch into power save mode. So you could be just scooting around your desktop, just doing stuff, right? And then switch it over to gaming mode, and it would then never go to sleep, right? And you could have your other DPIs used for gaming or whatever, other settings. And you had mode switching for that, right? Then on the G602, they put that into a physical switch on the back, which I thought was dumb, because it's like, you already had that with the G700, and they're like, oh, but you have to use the software. Well, no, because it had onboard memory. This is but that was like when Logitech was going away from onboard memory. So they like took something away to give it to you slightly as good. The Switch did work. Did its job, because G602 was really like the first mouse. 700 was good. Don't get me wrong on wireless. But the 602, even though it was only 500 hertz polling, was like the first mouse that was like, okay, this wireless is truly good enough for gaming, right? And then from there they went up to 1,000 after that. And then whatnot. So 8K, is it really needed? No. I mean, Vaxi has now finally pulled, like here they used to have 125, 500, 1,000. As of the XE Small, they have pulled the 125. It's now just 500, 1,000, 2,000. And then 4,000, which is all the lights, right? This one has been backpatched to do 4,000. Like, I have the 4K dongle for this, even though it's not listed. So it'll do it. But yeah, that was another thing where they said, like, hey, if you need the 125 hertz for whatever reason, either buy our wired one, which we're trying to get rid of because they're giving you a free mouse bungee for it, or buy the ones pre this, because 125 is going away. And the reason why I left 500 is there are a lot of CS, like CS 1.6 or even 1.5 and earlier guys, or CS Source guys, that ran 500. Like 1,000 used to cause issues with low-end systems back in the day. I never had an issue running 1,000. But like for systems that would be in a internet cafe or used at tournaments, like they only give you a good enough system to do what you're supposed to. Even if you look at the current CS stuff, I think they had like 4070s in there or something, right? Because that'll pump out enough frames at 1080p. Like there's no need for a 4090 when you're playing that game on the settings they play at, because it's like 4x3. Whatever, you know what I mean? Like a potato can run that. So you just need good enough, right? So that's why 500 is still there, is because there are some people that, like they've always ran 500, they always run the same DPI. They're going to continue to do that because that is what they're comfortable with. Do you need 8K? Probably not. I think people have even proved like it can push 8K. Like technically it can, but like you can't move your arm fast enough. This has also been like people have proven like, oh, you can make the polling on this go up by using a higher DPI on the mouse and like knocking it back in game or Windows, just to get this to pull more. There's that whole thing too where people would max out the mice like 8,000 DPI and then adjust it in game because like more DPI is more better. But then it turned out that realistically, what was it, like 400 to 1600 were the only native ranges. That was also back when the SteelSeries Rival 500 had come out, and they actually 600, because the 650 was wireless. When the 600 came out, I think 500, because the current one's the Rival 5, it's the new version of the 600, which is worse. And the 650, it's a worse mouse though, in my opinion. They should have just updated the 600 design to not have rubber pieces fall off, instead of making it full plastic and feel like garbage. And the shape is just worse. But with the 600, they actually reduced the overall DPI, like top cap of the DPI, to make the native DPI go up to 2400. Right, based on, I don't know if it was lens tuning or sensor tuning or whatever. Nowadays we like don't have that issue. So if you really want to be one of the guys that does that thing where you crank it up all the way, I do not see the, oh gosh, look at that. There's like no PCB left. If you really want to be one of the guys that does that, you can. I would just say, stick to your 200 to 3200 or whatever. You know, normally you're at 400, 800, 1600, 3200. Now some it might actually be the Lamzu actually that this Thorn that does some in between ones. Like it'll do I think it's like 400, 800, or maybe even 400, 600, 800, 1200, 1600, 3200, or something like that. Like there's a couple more steps in there. And because I think Squares is somewhere in the 600 to 800 range now. Paisley, ow! Your claws are way too long, cat, and you just, yeah, I'm making a video. There's a kitten here, for those wondering. She jumped on my back from behind, and I don't have a sweatshirt or anything on. And she dug in because she didn't make it. Yeah, you're doing it again, kitten. Jeez. Yeah. And she's like, it's 2 a.m. You should be sitting down and watching anime with us. You can see your tail right here. Yeah, she's just laying in my lap now. Hopefully we can finish the video. Jesus, kitten, I know my mom said we need to cut your claws last time she saw you. But, holy crap. Paisley. I thought you were doing good sharpening them and stuff, huh? Let me see. You're not going to let me see. No, she says, no. So, yeah, realistically, like some of you will run, I don't even know, what does it do for DPI? Here you go. 30,000. There you go. Yeah, and to make it do more inches per second or whatever, you have to crank it up all the way, and then you can kind of like trick it into it. You still have to move really, really fast. That's how people justify like not having 4,000 even, or 8,000. Now, like, I think somebody did prove, though, that Corsair's 2,000 isn't even 2,000. It's just 100 or 1,000 sent twice. I think that's just waste battery, but, I mean, I put it in that mode anyway. Yeah, this has got a 3095 sensor. You can look, like, 47 gram. It is lightweight. I mean, like, I was comparing to the Ninjutsu Okatana. I think that thing's, like, 52 or something. So, like, this thing it weighs nothing. That is something else I mentioned about the Maya, was that compared to the XES, I don't mind the extra weight of that. Okay, how do I put this? Like, everybody's like, oh, you gotta have the latest mouse, blah, blah, blah. Vaxi looks at this and they're like, we don't want holes in our mouse. We also want a reasonable battery life. Now, they did give up on this a little bit in order to do that. However, they still, in order to keep it lightweight, they still had to keep a minimum thickness on the shell because the painting process, I don't know if it's much like powder coating or anodizing, but it sounds that way. Like, basically, if you don't have at least a minimum thickness of the plastic that they're using, you get like warped paint, or the paint will actually cause the plastic to warp and stuff like that. They make mention of it in their video. Look, it has a completely covered bottom. Truthfully, and I know I can put the sticker on it, I'm not going to though, because this is how it lives. I already poked myself on that, on the backside of the scroll wheel. Legitimately poked myself, because they removed these cross members here. That's how open the bottom is. Like, and there's even less PCB. Like, there's like a skeleton of a PCB that a tiny little battery's attached to. The battery does look the same size as the Thorn, but you can just see around the edge too. There's just more plastic here on the Thorn than there is on the Maya X here. Now, the Maya X is a little bit longer than the Thorn. Hopefully, you can see that there. I do prefer the bigger foot on the back. If you look here. But yeah, I do think it's crazy how much they cut it open. As you can see, I don't use the Thorn daily. I use the Vaxi XE. The shape is more important. I'm going to tell you that, guys, right now. Losing 10 grams when you're already well below 100 grams isn't going to do it, in my opinion. The shape will. Also, the sensor, as long as it's a modern sensor implemented properly, huzzah. Like, Vaxi actually works directly with the sensor and the like wireless tech manufacturers. People were getting better and more consistent results, and especially like gameplay feel, out of their competitive mode at 1,000 hertz than comparative 2,000 or even 4,000 from other brands. Like they were saying, you know, like the latency out of their mouse, because they worked with them, they have like such raw input, and at one point it was a little bit too raw of an input because we lost features of the mouse. But like, and they're like, oops. In order to like really aim for that, we actually turned too much of the stuff off and ran into other issues where you couldn't mode switch and some other stuff. They later fixed that, and you got some of the features back and actually made some other stuff better. That's what's really cool, is they're like actively working, like taking community feedback and actively fixing things. And like back then, the competitive mode was an optional. Rather than just being a mode on the mouse, you had a separate firmware for it. Now there's competitive mode on the mouse, normal mode, and there might be three power profiles like there. There might just be two, because they got rid of like the in-between. There was like a gaming one and a normal one, and then there was a competitive one. I think they ditched the gaming one, if I recall. But yeah, this is the first one they openly admitted, like, hey, we compromised a little bit for this one because we wanted it to be, like, we see where this is going. If you notice, like, it doesn't have the cutouts for the wired, stuff like that. Whereas this, they wanted at a minimum, at full tilt, 72-hour battery life, right? But it's heavier. Right now, to be truthful, do I mind this over this? As long as the shape's good, I can adapt to that. And the wired version of this guy, the XE, is actually even lighter, and I use that at work all day. Do I notice a huge difference between that weight difference, even though it's literally the same mouse? Nope, I don't. I'm not saying, like I said, I picked up the Maya X, and I'm like, whoo. And I remember when Mooski was over, same thing. Like, that is actually a really dang light mouse. Just kind of like how I did with the Dex here, where, you know, this is noticeably, like, this is, there's nothing there. Even this is lighter than the Dex, right? But this is a pretty light mouse too, especially compared to like the Bolt. Like, this thing is, you can tell it's front heavy. There's a lot of junk in its, not in its trunk, in its frunk. There's a lot of junk in its frunk. So that I put my hand on this thing and oh, it feels good. That's because it's the Thorn. You're used to the Thorn. So like I said, I like the Maya. Maya X, a little bit bigger. Here it is compared to the XE. Touch and tips. And look, the Maya is actually like a slight bit bigger, and I will have to probably get used to that on the butt. But they are very, very close. So I'm glad that I picked up the. Here we can do a 2X. There you go. For people who have the XE as context. Very, very similar overall size. Like I want to say the Maya is just a hair longer. The buttons, you can tell, go back a little bit farther. I don't know if I actually like that, because I can actually hit that with behind my knuckle here from time to time. Like I said, the XE shape-wise, I'm not saying it's the perfect mouse, but like when they're like, oh, we're developing a ambidextrous, slightly ergonomic for gaming and productivity, I was like, hell yeah, that is what I do. You've described my use case. It looks like the Maya does curve in a bit more and doesn't go back out like the front, and that is one thing I did like about the Bolt as well as the XE, is that the front kind of flares back out. Maybe my like of that comes from the Death Adder, because the Death Adder very much does that. Also, the back part of this part definitely goes forward more than the XE does. If you look at that, curve in starts sooner. And I probably is less, it's more gradual on the Maya than the XE. And Paisley's stealing a cable now, and she's eating the cable now. And that's when you get kicked off the lap, kitten. Oh, and you brought your bag. Okay, guys, here, this is what she plays with. This is a Walmart bag, I think. Yeah, that's her toy. It's her favoriteest toy. That's why it looks like it's in shambles, because she shreds it. And she looks like the cutest little kitten when she grabs it and runs back. And she actually like bounds. She has like a little skip in her step when she runs with that thing. She's so happy. So we just keep throwing it, and then it disappears, and usually I end up sleeping with it or something. So it looks like the raise on the back, a little bit taller on the XE than the Maya. You know, that's how far it's going to cause your palm to raise up off the surface. I would say overall the Maya is a little bit thinner. I do like that. I do like generally being closer to the surface. Like I said, the bolt is very good about that. It gets you nice and low overall, while still having like good palm support. Like get this mouse in this finish, thumbs up. I did break one of these, by the way, guys. I think it was the back button. I went like this one day, and it just went. That was like within 2 weeks of ordering it. I actually sent it to their R&D facility because they're like, "How you did what now?" And I'm like, "Yep, I'm special." That seems to be on newer mice. If you guys are wondering, that's what I break, because I broke that on the EC3C as well. They didn't really care as much; they just replaced it. I think I had to pay return shipping though on a brand new brand, which that was kind of ridiculous with Zoe. Vaxi did the same thing though. I think they have that figured out now. Like that might have been just a warranty claim, but the Zoe was within return policy, which was kind of like ludicrous if you ask me. That a mouse breaking within return policy, I would have to pay shipping for, but whatever. Sigh. You probably, if you go back to that video, you'll hear about that. Deal with a lot of RMAs because, like I said, I break these. I have a lot of mice, and I do use them. Granted, they usually get used for a while. The Thorn's been in this drawer here, and used on and off, with the XE being my main mouse. And then we've had the Viper Hyperspeed, the Viper Pro, XE Small. Dex is on there for now because Logitech finally made a Ergo right-handed mouse for the first time in literal forever. You know, but always been like I kind of knew the XE was going to be like the new. When I was using the Rival for work and the Aerox for my main mouse for home, I don't know that I was fully satisfied with it. Like, it was the closest that was currently... Because I never liked how thin those side buttons were. These are, like, twice as thick. These are twice as thick as what the Aerox had for buttons. But it was the closest to what I was liking at the time, was that mouse. This... We'll see. It feels wider... Okay, where the Maya feels wider than the XE, even though I feel like this flares out more, is in the hips... Or not the hips are down here. Shoulders? In the shoulders here. Right up here. And that's because this is much more curved. And it's curved on the bottom. Whereas the Maya is like a shelf. Like it straightens out. Like, right? And that is where I'm feeling a little bit of, is right here in the shoulders. Right there. And you can see there's like kind of a little bump right there too. I don't know if you can actually see that. But there's like right there is where I'm feeling a little... It's like this distance versus this nice curvy distance. See that? And I can even tell holding it, this is wider, right at that point. And that is where I'm getting a little bit of, even if you look at the this is probably why I like the Thorn a whole bunch, is because it's very curvy, right? So like this has got a nice whoosh, and it curves, right? Whereas the Maya is very ka-cha, ka-cha. But if you look at something like the Bolt, God, it's so front heavy. Like, what did they put up here? Jeez. Like, what? I guess I never noticed that it was this front heavy until I'm holding mice that are like part of it, you know, partial of its weight. But this is also very similar. If you look at this, a little bit more curved in here, but you know, very vertical. I don't get that same thing, though, because I don't think the Bolt's as wide. No. Well, maybe. At least not at that point. It's oddly wide. Like, because of the slope goes in here. I don't know if you guys can see it. The slope goes... It's kind of like this way. Not vertical, not this way, but it's starting to be this way. So, like, right where I get it, right there, it still hasn't tapered down like it has down here, right? So, it's oddly wide at the upper part of its shoulders up here. It's a different shape. Like, it should have changes. You know, I'm not saying anything bad about it, but that is probably the first thing that I can feel is where I'm pinching on the sides here like this. that it's a little bit wider, and that's going to take a little bit of getting used to. Still feels way better in my opinion than the Dex. Now I've gotten a little bit used to this. It is also not an ambi mouse; it's a right-handed mouse. But this is a literal cliff. This is a cliff. Look at that, like cliff, and it's sharp. Like that's lit. I mean, it's not like actually sharp, but like for a mouse, that is a sharp lip. Like that's a sharp lip right there. Now we got a little bit of that on the Maya, but as you can see, it's a little bit rolled off. It's still pretty sharp there compared to something like the Thorn, which is like comparatively rounded, and then something like the Vaxi, which this whole thing rounds over and then down and around, right? Similarly on the XE Small, yeah. And yes, the XE Small is not just the XE Smallified, like 90%. They did actually like reshape and rework areas that didn't work, whereas most brands will just be like, oh, the Death Adder Mini is a mini version of the Death Adder, and they literally just go in CAD and scale it down. They did not do that. But I'm pumped to get this thing going. This thing is, like I said, it's super duper duper light. Hopefully you guys like my insight. I'll get the camera down and we can give her a 360 view for you guys on this, guys and gals out there. But more than likely, if you're looking at a Lamzu Maya X, specifically the Fnatic edition, you have other mice. If you have questions about like, hey, do you have this mouse or can you compare it to it? I probably won't make a video on it, but I usually will reply to your comment. Otherwise, if you want feedback back and forth, a whole bunch of us that are into mice are on, and I say a whole bunch, like maybe a dozen, that are into mice are on our Discord, which is linked in the description. You can hop on there if you want some like feedback. Like I'm using this mouse right now, as long as it's not. If you notice, I do not, or I try to avoid to get into these like super niche Chinese. I shouldn't say this. Lamzu probably is, but they've put out multiple mice at this point. They're Esports Flex. They're doing the same thing SteelSeries does on there. Probably is that Fnatic? Yeah, that's Fnatic. It's not even what do you want to call it? I mean, it is a Fnatic. They sell it as Fnatic mouse, even though it's a Lamzu effectively. But, oh, by the way, it got cut open. You can see here, this was probably at the top of a box in a pallet, right? That wasn't me. You saw where I opened it along the seam here. So, yeah, somebody, no, I don't really care because this box, you can see it goes all the way from here to there. I don't really care because I'm going to throw the box out. But for those of you like Mooski, keeps all of his original boxes. When he's done with it, he puts the mice back in the box. Keeps all accessories in with it. I'm like, bruh, I need the mouse and the dongle. Everything else can... Here, USB-C cable, you can charge it like that. You know, how many of those do I have around here? It doesn't say what DPIs it goes through. I think I'm going to have to look that up online because they, like I said, I think they do like 400, 800, or 400, 600, 800, 1200, 1600, and then maybe even 3200, 2400 there, which is different than Zoe, which is what I was used to. Vaxi is very similar to Zoe. Makes sense. And, you know, it doesn't matter for your super light, whether or not it's the Dex or not. And by the way, from that view, you probably couldn't even tell it was the Dex. But yeah, they don't, because they don't have DPI buttons. So it doesn't matter. I currently have a kitten on my mouse pad, taking up the entire mouse pad. You're not going to let me play Call of Duty tonight, are you? Oh, and she just schwoked me. Yeah, you're being feisty. I see that. But yeah, if you ask either in the comments of this video or in the Discord or Twitter too, you can hit me up there. I think I'm on Threads now as well. I'll try to compare it to like whatever mouse you're currently using or other mice that you have experience with. Why do I always now go back to the XE? Because that is my main mouse. I use a wireless one at home. I used to use two different wireless ones back when I had one on the non-competitive and the yellow was on the competitive. Then I had issues with the white one. I don't remember what I did. Broke it somehow, of course. Or wore it out, I think, more. And then Squeers bought that off me. So he now has he sent us a brand new white one. He's now got that one. and I just kept my yellow one. So like once this had the firmware you can toggle, because the other thing that was happening is with the competitive firmware, you could not do the dual dongle mode. And I was using the dual dongle mode for work. I had one dongle in my personal desktop and one dongle at home in the dock for my work laptop. And in the competitive mode, when it first shipped, that disabled that. Now in the 4K mode, also disabled that. But they are bringing that back, which is why I bought 2 4K dongles for the Vaxies. That is a nice thing that I like. If you check it out, I just made a video about doing the Sony Pulse Elite dongle pairing, and that is, oh my god, they need a video like Vaxie does, because I literally pulled my hair out. It should not take 40 minutes to pair a pair of, like, Sony knows how to pair things. They've had Bluetooth things for forever. It took me 40 minutes to get those paired to the second dongle. And in that case, I want to use it here and then on the home theater PC. So I want one dongle in each place. That way I don't have to, especially once the setup down here goes upstairs into the office, I don't want to have to like unplug stuff or undo stuff, especially when it's made to pair to multiple dongles. But yeah, I'm glad I got to try out the Maya before buying. I was originally going to buy the Maya, but then Muskie shows up with his Maya, and I'm like, oh, so maybe it's smaller, on the smaller side. He tends to prefer those. He really liked the XE small to the point where I believe he bought one that night. He bought the Botan Special Edition. But after that, and then I noticed that Fnatic was not only selling the Maya, but also the Maya X. I'm like, okay, well, I will try the embiggened one, because that is what I prefer. If they come out with an updated version of this with the guts of this guy, I will probably get orange, and then you won't be able to tell any of my mice apart. Ha 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 ha! It's all a ruse to confuse all of you guys, because all the mice will just be orange. But I'm pretty impressed once again. I mean, Lamzu seems to make good mice. They're pretty well regarded without pairing or partnering up with Fnatic. I do wish, because Fnatic can make, like, their previous designs, I want to say, were very heavily based on designs made by Funk previously. This was their first full, like, new mouse design. I quite liked it. I used it until I broke it. Now, then once it got replaced, I just went to using something else because it had to go for warranty, you know? And yeah, the side buttons are a weak point of this. I would say another way to really improve this would be fix whatever's making it front heavy like that. I don't know what it is in particular, but it is like massively front heavy. Only noticing that now. Pick a better material. Like, I usually like a textured plastic, but I don't know. This isn't it. Yeah. Clicks also feel a little bit hollow. Click. There's a lot of post travel, not a lot of pre travel. Post travel's got quite a bit. Oh, we never looked at that on the Maya. Click. That's nothing. And there's a little bit of post travel. They're based on what, and I do believe them, because Vaxie's fairly open with their development of their products. They significantly improved from the XE to the XE Small. They actually changed how the whole under part of here looks and works and feels. But they actually went over how they can eliminate pre-travel, but you can't fully eliminate post-travel because you actually have to go past the actuation point a bit for it to reset properly. Now, I showed that on the Superlight and the Dex, that they have almost no post travel. Like once it clicks, you're at the bottom. Like there is no click and then travel. So, you know, people have been having issues. Like everybody says, like, oh, it's because of the lower like voltage that they run, and it probably is. I think some people have proven that. But I would say personally as well that after not really having used them because they went to no DPI toggle and I need one, and if running no DPI toggle and I need one and it's not good enough for me to not have a DPI toggle, and now they have the Pro 2 out, which is not the Super Light 2, but it's a new version of the Pro, which is the original, but 2, so it has the guts of the decks, effectively. I don't like that shape enough to, like, go buy another mouse. I would just use the Pro. Like, it's fine. But yes, so Lamzu having... look at that, almost no pre-travel, and if you can ride that really easily, but it does have a bit of post-travel. See that? And to properly reset, you do need, like, for the Switch to reset properly, you do need that. And that is where Logitech, like, there's nothing. Like, that is, as soon as it clicks, you're bottomed out. Like I said, there's a small amount of take up pre-travel, but then there's no post-travel. I would rather have it flipped, if that makes sense. And that could be, I'm not saying that's causing issues, but, you know, based on what Vaxi said, they know their stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if it's part of causing issues with double clicking. Or issues with the switches, because, and I do know from other switches, like keyboard switches, something like a blue switch needs to, when it clicks, it actually has to go back up. And some, like, mechanical keyboard switches have their, it's like a gun, or also like the pew-pews, right? So when you pull the trigger, it goes click, and then there's a reset, and you don't necessarily have to go all the way back to the beginning to reset it, but you have to go past where you were, right? And it's not always at the exact same point. Often after on one pull too, the pull again is lighter, depending on the type of weapon and how it's configured and stuff like that. If running the mechanisms of that's effectively a big chunky switch. Okay, mechanical switches work the same way. Is depending on how they actuate, you may have to, you know, if actuation's here, it may have to go a bit further to hit the reset on the way back up, or vice versa. It may have to reset up a bit further. Like, that's why you may have a little bit of pre-travel. Like I said, there's almost no pre-travel on here. Look at that. That's amazing. But you do have that little bit of post. And I'm going to tell you, people are like, oh, I need no post-travel. This is why it doesn't matter if you have lighter... Like, people like, lighter switches are faster. Because they're lighter, you can press them down. Your finger and hand are many times heavier than that switch. The weight of the switch is not going to control how fast you press it. The actuation point being up higher, that will actually be faster because the distance you're pressing it is actually less. Like, the distance you have to press it down. So, like, if you're going at the same speed, going less distance makes sense. And people are like, oh, because it's lighter, I can press it faster. I rest my hands on reds and they depress. Red switches. You know, also, to reiterate, red switches on keyboards were only popular because they were rare. There was one keyboard that had them. Okay, it was a Philco. And I don't think it was called the was it called the Stealth? It was called the Ninja, the Philco Ninja, and it had the keys on the side, like that side printed keycaps, right? And it had red switches. Only one at the time that had that. That's why red switches were cool. That's why people thought they were cool. Rarity. People also thought the clears were cool until Leopold made clear boards ubiquitously available. Then people had them for a month and were like, oh, these are heavy. They're meant to be. They're meant to have a big tactile bump. They're used in POS machines so that when you're at the register working and you're in conk, 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 you're getting feedback. Like, you know, different strokes for different folks. Just because it's lighter or branded as gaming doesn't make it gaming. You know, that's why, like, back in the day, what did people use for like, one of the best mice for gaming all the time? Intel Mouse Explorer 3.0. I wasn't a big fan of it. That wasn't a gaming mouse. At a certain point, it was branded as one, but it was not a gaming mouse. Also, Wheel Mouse Optical. That's like a normal 3-button productivity mouse. IntelliMouse Optical. That was like the mouse of their IntelliEye sensor, right? Love that shape. Not a gaming mouse, you know. Even the MX line from Logitech, right? That MX518, MX, that's their productivity line, not their gaming line. So just keep that stuff in mind. Now, nowadays, we definitely have gaming mice. Do you need a gaming keyboard to game? No. Is the looting stuff kind of cool? And then Razer kind of like knocks it off. Yeah, to be truthful, with how Wooting supports their products, as much as I don't necessarily need them because I'm not that hard into gaming, if you are that hard into gaming and you want that next step up, would I recommend them? To be truthful, probably, because you're buying support. That's what you're buying. Wooting pushed their latest software all the way back to their oldest keyboard, right? Here's another thing. Vaxi, minus, like, this is their first wireless mouse as well, right? This gets the updates. It may be a bit clunkier because you have to update the dongle and the mouse separately, right? But this has gotten every update they've had. Now, obviously, the updates that are exclusive to the new hardware that's in here can't happen. If you notice, there's a lot less buttons and switches, and they're in different spots. They moved this here so you can reach around and do DPI easier, and then the on-off's over here rather than, vice versa. That won't happen, but up until this point, the entire time that the XE's been out and they put out slow iterations of better hardware, they've backported all of that. That is the stuff I look for in a brand. Not a one-off, super hot product that goes for $200 and then later on is discounted below $100. I think the normal one of these was like $150. I think you can get them for like $90 now. Where's the dongle? Well, the dongle fell out. Oh yeah, here's another thing. This one does have a dongle hole for dongle daikazoku, but it doesn't actually hold. So what's the point of a dongle hole that doesn't hold your dongle? That time, of course, it didn't come out. But as you can see, it wasn't in the mouse and it was bumping around the tray here. Obviously, it's not working. I don't know. I'd like to see some way to attach this to here, but the dongle's massive, so I probably don't think of you using it that way. But yes, this is how I use them. I'll try to link. I will try to remember, I should say, to link these down below in the description. They're super handy. You can then, if you have a USB hub or a USB extension for USB-C on your desk, just plug it in rather than having to use like the mouse cable and plug it in. Or anything like that. Otherwise what you can do is just have a C to C cable on your desk, right? And then you just plug the C to C cable in like that, and you could just leave the C to C cable if you have a lot of USB-C dongles. Now, here's the issue. Some USB-C dongles, like SteelSeries, have a male on the backside, right? All of Razer's are female. All of Vaxi's are female. The reason why I do that is they want you to use the existing cable for the mouse as like an extension to get this close to your mouse pad, right? I would find, just a USB-C cable that is a good enough quality one that has a small enough head so I can just interchange all the brands I have. That's me. And I feel like a lot of people that are running like a Lamzu Fnatic X Lamzu Maya probably have more than one mouse. Maybe you don't. But I feel like this is not a single mouse or a first mouse, or like ask your parents to get it for Christmas, or they're going to Best Buy. You're getting a Logitech Razer course. M75 is okay, but maybe a SteelSeries. You're getting those Best Buy brands. You could 3-finger this too. See? Comment down below. And as always, we'll see you in the next one. Peace.